Hi everyone, welcome to YouTube Live. My name is Dawn Wiggins. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and your life and relationship strategist. Today we're talking about dating and the common experience that it can be pretty tough. Now, dating has changed a lot these days with online dating platforms and with the idea that we live longer and that the divorce rate is up. There's so many different factors that have contributed to the fact that we tend to date more and later in life, and we're kind of coming up against more and greater challenges. And so a lot of my clients and even my really good friends really struggle with dating, and I knew it was time to tackle this topic. So I'm excited to take your questions. Let's jump in and let's see what we can accomplish today. So I've learned quite a bit that in relationships, we're often attracted to people who are charismatic, who are financially secure, who are good looking, and these are all great qualities, right? They're things that we all want in a mate. However, a lot of times what we're looking for without knowing it is unconsciously we're trying to soothe whatever anxiety we might have about our own lives, and whether we're bored or we don't feel good about ourselves physically, or we're worried about our financial future, so we might be kind of unconsciously drawn to people who can solve or soothe those worries instead of kind of challenging ourselves to really look for candidates, relationship candidates, that are honest, that are empathetic, that are trustworthy and consistent and dedicated and loyal, and those kinds of things. I know early on in my life that I often selected people to date based on all the wrong qualities. It was about, do you believe in the same religion as I do? And do you have the same level of education? Are you as intelligent as me? And all these things that people think are what make a quality relationship. But believe it or not, those are not the things that make a quality relationship. A quality relationship comes with um, commitment, like undying commitment, with empathy and compassion for each other, with unconditional acceptance and love. And so these are qualities that are harder to find, and they may not look as sexy when you're looking at a dating profile or you first catch someone's eye across the room. And you certainly can't tell if somebody is empathetic and compassionate and loyal, when you catch their eye across the room. We know a lot from science that the people that we're attracted to are typically based on looks. For women, we get drawn to things like the shoulders. Men often are attracted to women's rear quarters. There's a great documentary on Netflix that I watched about the science of attraction that has taught me so much about what we're initially attracted to. And a lot of it is based on visual and chemistry. However, if you're dating, I'm going to guess that you want something more long-term if you're watching this video. So the suggestions that I'm giving you today are about looking past what we're initially drawn to so that you can build something that is secure and loving and can stand the test of life and time and struggle. So I see a question in the chat box. Let me just check in. With the world of online dating, is there a proper way to sell yourself? Things you should say in your profile or you shouldn't? That's an awesome question, and I deal with this a lot in my practice because I have clients that have some, specific concerns. I have a client that has a physical disability, and she struggles with, do I put that in my profile or not? And I think a lot of people going into dating, one of the biggest struggles is, can I trust this profile or can I trust this person? And the reality is that trust is built over time. So what I want you to consider when you're building a dating profile is, how comfortable are you with the content that you're putting out there? The more self-worth you have, the more confident you are, the less you'll be concerned about what you're putting out there in your profile. Because ultimately what we need to do is find a partner that we can be our authentic selves with. And that means being willing to put it out there. Now, because trust is built over time, we may not disclose everything in the first date or on our dating profile, but check in with yourself about your comfort level and be willing to let let those people go by that might not initially be okay with, some of your faults, flaws, or insecurities that you stick in there. But I think that the more authentic you are, the more trustworthy you're going to come across as, and people aren't going to wonder, like, is this person real? They're going to say, okay, here's someone that is telling me like it is, and they're not hiding anything in their profile. So you want your profile and who you are to be congruent, if that makes sense. If your dating profile is not congruent with how you're going to show up on a first date, then it's probably a red flag. I hope I answered your question there. But there's no right or wrong way to fill out a dating profile. I would encourage congruence is the word I'll go with for creating a dating profile. And when you are online dating, I think that it's important to not just go straight from seeing a profile to texting to meeting. I hear a lot of times that people don't get on the phone and talk, that they're getting really used to just texting and just communicating through maybe the dating app and not actually getting to know each other through some conversations before meeting up for a date. I think that's another way for you to get a feel for people, because just texting, there's so much that gets lost in context. And so keep in mind that you could start to build a relationship or get a sense of a person by talking a little bit if you're online dating. I see some more questions in the chat box. So we look for the magic button when we look for a mate, the one who is perfect for us. That's very common. Yes, we're looking for someone who's perfect, and I'm going to encourage you to look for someone who is imperfect and be willing to embrace that, because the perfect person is truly the person that can unconditionally love, and they're not actually going to be perfect. I know for myself that I struggled with a lot of things in the period of my life that I've been dating, about the fact that I have a chronic disease, or that I was divorced, or you name it, just things that I had concerns about somebody else accepting. And so the perfect person out there is someone who's willing to be flexible with life's challenges, someone who has demonstrated commitment or consistency over time, or growth over time, the ability to be flexible with the ups and downs of life. It's funny, marriage vows, they're actually, they cover the bases pretty well, in sickness and in health, for better, for worse, and richer and poor, but we're not very good at actually meeting those commitments these days. We take those vows, but we don't actually follow through, and we don't consider, like, well, what would life be like if it wasn't all happy-go-lucky like it is when we first start dating? So challenge yourself to look past the perfect mate and look for someone who has that ability to love with an open heart. I see another question. Do you find that it's harder for non-straight people to date, or is the dating world in general hard? Well, the dating world, I think, is hard in general, but I think that for non-straight people, there is an extra challenge, certainly. I think that a huge part of the population, and for people who are straight, like myself, we go around just kind of assuming that most of the people that we run into that are the opposite sex, that they're an option, if that makes sense. And that's a challenge for people who aren't straight, or who don't identify with a binary gender. So it's a lot more complicated, because I still think we have a long way to go as a society in terms of understanding people who are different than us, and accepting and practicing tolerance. And so I think it takes an extra dose of self-worth and willingness to put yourself out there and to risk rejection if you're not straight. And I want to be clear that not straight can mean a lot of things. That doesn't mean that you're gay. That there is sexual fluidity is a very real thing, and that who you're attracted to can change over time. We know that from the Kinsey scales, which was research that was done in the 50s. And that was then, and we have so much more data now that says that who I'm attracted to today can vary from completely straight to completely gay, or anywhere in between, and that can change over the course of my life. Women tend to be more sexually fluid than men, but even so, know that who you're dating or who you want to date today might not be who you want to date in 10 years. So keep that in mind. Let's see. For anyone that's in the dating world and has children, when is a good time to talk about their kids or introduce them? So talking about your kids from the beginning is important. Not only talking about your kids, because I think a lot of people lean on subjects that they're really familiar with, especially when they're dating. So if you're talking excessively about your kids, you want to have balance. You want to bring that to the table. Introducing them, I would certainly wait on quite a while, actually. And I'm saying that as a advocate for children and as a therapist. I think it's important to take a healthy pause before you introduce your children, because children need consistency and they need to know that they can trust the world around them. And until you're clear about whether or not you can trust this person, or what their track record is, or what their intentions are, or if you've kind of been able to establish whether or not there's a true connection. A lot of parents who rush into moving a new partner in, or rushing to introduce their new dating partner, there's usually an underlying motive there about finances, or needing help parenting, because single parents, it's really overwhelming. And so a lot of times you may rush into a relationship because you want somebody else to help you carry the burden. And while I understand that those are very real burdens, being a single parent, finances, and just the task of parenting, please don't rush into a relationship because you need assistance with those things, because it likely will end up causing trouble one place or another. That's an awesome question. Thank you. Let's see. What are some signs that it's not going to work, or signs to look for? Okay, so um, you want to really get a sense of who a person is over time. And you also want to check in with your gut. So if someone is telling you something today about how they are, but that's not consistent with how they've been through the course of their life, like if someone has never been in a committed relationship, or they've been divorced multiple times, or there's some other flag there, then get a sense of, have they learned about themselves why these patterns are showing up? Or do they just keep going in and doing the same thing over and over again? And I would ask yourself the same question. If you have a certain pattern with relationships, have you done the work to figure out why it's so hard for you to maintain a relationship? Because otherwise you keep bringing the same thing, the same problems, the same baggage to the table. So we all have baggage. We all have issues. I'm not encouraging you to go look for a perfect person that has no baggage, but I want you to look for, is there insight about the baggage? Is there insight about the patterns and how to do it differently? Is there a willingness to learn about yourself? Is there a willingness to grow? And is the person that you're dating, do they have that same willingness? So to work together, because that's really what commitment is, partnership. Partnership is about working together. Some flags that you might want to look out for, they're kind of personality styles or ways of being. A lot of times codependents or caretakers, if you will, we're going to look for people who, and I'm including myself in that, codependents can be men or women, caretakers. We're going to look for people who maybe need a little extra help, or really need that empathetic listening ear. And we're going to say, oh, tell me everything, and oh, I really understand. And so we might rush into a relationship where we really feel needed, wanted, or valued because we're listeners or we're caretakers. So be aware that that's a flag. A lot of times codependents are attracted to narcissists, and narcissists to codependents. So that means if you're someone who is a little narcissistic, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but if you know that that's your personality style, that you have some of those traits to be maybe a little self-centered and a little more focused on your needs than other people's needs, and a tendency to focus on money, power, the external things, know that you're probably going to be drawn to a caretaker. What happens when you have mismatches with personality styles like that is there's an underlying motive that's going on there about self-worth. And so that's a lot of what ends up destroying relationships in the end, is when we're not coming from a place of grounded self-worth, and then we enter into a relationship where we're trying to get our needs met by the other person. And so we tend to be unconsciously drawn to people where we want to get our needs met, but then it feels needy or it feels demanding, and then we develop resentment because we don't really want to feel like our relationship is a burden. And so it's important to know that if I'm going into a relationship, that I can do it from a place of self-sufficiency, and where I can just offer my love without expecting anything in return. So if you're someone who has a lot of expectations of someone, that they conform to what you like or how you think, or if you're someone who's really willing to conform, those are red flags, because you wouldn't really want to go into it saying, okay, I'm going to be me, you're going to be you, and I'm going to accept you as you are, and not have expectations of you need to meet a certain standard in order for us to be together. I need to give my love freely and receive your love freely, and then we have mutuality and respect and partnership instead of always needing. Now, don't get me wrong, in relationships we are going to need to lean on each other, but it's mutual. It's not like I need you. You complete me. That whole what was that movie with Tom Cruise? You guys know what I'm talking about. You complete me. That's not a good idea. Because then at some point, that issue will pop to the surface. Let me check in the chat box here. Let's see, should I make a list, like 10 things I expect in a partner, 10 things my future partner shouldn't have? I think lists are good for a couple of things. If you know some of your pitfalls in relationships, like if you know what your pattern is of what you fall into, if there's a certain person that you're attracted to and it's been problematic for you, then you may want to just point out a couple, like make a list of a couple of things to avoid. And then once you're in the relationship and it feels so good, you can check back with yourself, like, am I in integrity here? Is this person really in line with the things that I need, or am I falling into my old pattern? And then the list of things to look for that you would want in a partner, it's a short list. I know people, this is a common assignment or things that go around in the world of therapy and relationships and dating, I think, to know what you're looking for in a partner. But I'm telling you that if you make an exhaustive list of things that you're looking for in a partner, you're likely going to struggle in the world of dating. I would stick to the really important things like honesty, integrity, compassion, open-heartedness, loving, those character traits that you can build a foundation of a relationship in. I wouldn't get too specific about looks, about finances, about family issues or religion or those kinds of things. I would look for character above all else. I hope I answered your question. I see a question, dating is expected while growing up, and I feel like I rushed into things as a kid because of that. Do you have any tips for someone who has never dated before? Absolutely, that's an awesome question. So dating is expected, and it's healthy, because we learn about how to be in relationship by being in relationships. So it's hard to get that experience unless we do it. So I'd be curious if I could ask you a follow-up question. Do you feel like you rushed into dating, or do you feel like you rushed into doing other things that are expected during dating? Like, for instance, some people who maybe aren't straight, maybe they feel pressure to date, so they date somebody who, they date somebody of the opposite sex, but they don't really want to, or somebody who wants to date, but they don't want to feel pressure to have sex, because I think there's a lot of pressure around sex and dating. I don't care whether you've dated before or you've been married, that sex is something that is challenging for most people to navigate into a dating relationship. So be conscious. What is the hesitation about dating? Is it fear of being accepted? Is it fear about some sexual component of the relationship? Is it really that you haven't come out yet, maybe? Or is it a social anxiety? What is it that you're avoiding? And then if you can address that thing that's causing you anxiety, it'll allow you to feel more comfortable in the dating world. And know that it's okay to fumble in the dating world. I want you to be okay with fumbling in the dating world. If you're not fumbling, then you're not learning about yourself and other people. So I hope that helps you a little bit, that maybe the advice to people who haven't dated before that feel that pressure, please, it's okay to fumble. It's okay to get it wrong. Rejection is something we avoid so strongly, but it's something that we really need to learn to be okay with. So that would be probably one of my biggest pieces of advice, is learn to get okay with not being chosen, if that makes any sense. To feel empowered that you can do the choosing, and it's okay to not be chosen, that we don't have to like everyone we date, and everyone we date doesn't have to like us. And you know, it's like shoe shopping or car shopping, you know? Like, would I buy the first car that somebody said, here, test drive this one? No, you know, I want to go and find the one that fits me, that I like, that, you know, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So try not to get offended if the first few people that you date aren't a good fit. I hope I answered your question. Um, on the same wave as the last question, how do you deal with the societal idea of having to find your other half? Is that a healthy idea? I really don't love that idea. So the idea of soulmate in my belief system is that my soul, if you believe in that kind of thing, my soul can connect with anyone else that has an open heart. And so, you know, my soulmate could be my assistant. My soulmate could be, you know, somebody that I meet at the park or in a yoga class. Uh, and I could have like 100 soulmates or 1,000 soulmates, you know, like I think I'm Brene Brown's soulmate and she just doesn't know it, but that's okay. So I think it gets really dangerous when we get into this idea that there's only one person out there that is my other half or is my soulmate. There are lots of people out there for you to connect with, and relationships function better when we don't seek to get so many of our needs met from just one other person. We do better when we have community and we have support, and when we maintain our own social lives and our own interests as well as maintaining the relationship. So no, don't go looking for your other half. Look for someone that just can kind of join you on the path of life and love you as you're along the way. Let's see, another question. I think when you're 18 or younger, you're excited to date. When you're 50, it feels very tough to go out and look for a new partner again. Amen. So the struggle with people who are in adolescence or young adulthood is really that being able to manage dating without long-term commitment, because a lot of times when you're an adolescent or you're a young adult, you're not really ready to get married, and so it's about learning to date without um, getting your heart broken or completely trampled every time, and just knowing that you're in it for practice and getting to know each other and learning how to have relationships rather than planning to marry the first person that you date. When you're 50 or older, the challenge is about a lot of the baggage that you have from life, that we have become cynical and our hearts have been broken so many times that it's hard to trust, it's hard to keep our heart open. We may be very wary of other people that, you know, we just are tired of it. And so I think that when you're over 50 and you're dating, it's really, really important to do some work on self-worth and to do some work on picking a partner, a healthy partner, so that, and to be willing to take a time out if there's some things that you need to learn about yourself or learn about dating and relationships. But some people that I know that are over 50, they've just like taken themselves out of the game completely. And if you've been not dating or not connecting with people for too long, then it can get even harder. So keep in mind there's a healthy balance there between taking a time out and healing and staying away for so long that you forget what it feels like to be held by someone or to kiss someone or to feel that excitement or that aliveness of sexuality or of intimacy. So find your balance, be willing to do some work, but don't be too afraid to get back on the horse, if that makes any sense. So that kind of leads into the next question that I see. Should you have a buffer period between relationships from breaking up to starting to date again, or is it more on a case-by-case basis? I would say it is a case-by-case basis. It would depend on how long, how intimate, how close the relationship was. But we do need a period of time to grieve, because otherwise we end up entering the new relationship and two things happen. There's probably more than two things that happen, but I'm going to highlight two. We compare, meaning we're entering this new relationship saying, how does this person compare to the last few relationships, rather than taking this person for just who they are? And that's kind of a human nature thing to compare, but we want to avoid it. We want to go into it with as clean of a lens as we can. So the other thing that happens when we rush into a relationship is that we still have leftover feelings or issues that haven't been resolved. And that's just grief, and it's normal. It's about letting go. And if we haven't let go at least enough that we can enter into a new relationship with kind of, again, a clear lens, then it takes up space in the relationship that can cause unnecessary hurdles. So I know lots of people who have gotten into a relationship and it's worked out, even if they have not completely let go of their last relationship, but just know that you're going to create additional problems or challenges when creating a relationship is often hard enough. So I see a couple more questions. It's so hard to find someone that's willing to date because I have kids. I'm not looking for a father for them. They have a father, but I think men are turned off by that, especially when their kids are grown. Yeah, I can certainly understand that it's a tricky balance between um, your kids not wanting a replacement father and people being afraid that they're going to have expectations on them. And so it really is about being willing to be your authentic self and just navigate those conversations honestly, and communicate that. Um, I'm not quite sure what you mean about men are turned off by that, especially when their kids are grown. Um, Most men, well, let me not say most, but I think a lot of times men don't want to take on, they don't want to get in the middle of the relationship between children and their father. And so I think if you can navigate that early on and clarify that and then live by it. So not just say it, but then live by it and keep that boundary clear, it makes it a lot easier. And so there's a lot of interesting things that come up there because sometimes people who have never had children, some of them like the idea of having stepchildren or kids in their life. Um, but for people who already have kids, I think they know how messy it can get when a step parent or a parent figure enters the picture. So that usually takes some special assistance. I've dated people who have kids before I had children. I've had lots of clients that have struggled with this, and how to navigate kids and dating, and please feel free to reach out and ask for help from other people about how to navigate some of those things. Let's see, I see a few more questions. Oh, there's a follow-up question to the one about dating with kids. I haven't found anyone interested to date me. So I'm curious to know if you've explored a little bit how you feel. Do you have an insecurity? Do you have anxiety about men accepting you with children? Because that anxiety might be showing up somewhere. So I might find someone to talk to, whether it's a friend or a coach or a spiritual advisor or somebody that you trust. Ask for some feedback about how you're showing up in the dating world. Because if you're bringing that anxiety to the table, then you're never sure that if we're really coming across the way that we mean to. And so if you haven't found someone that is willing to date you with children, there's probably a reason. So I might do a little bit work to find out and explore why, because you are certainly worth loving, and there are people out there that want to date people with children. And so let's find out why there's a disconnect. Is there something about your heart that's a little closed off, perhaps? Just a guess. Hope I didn't offend. Let's see, a couple more questions. What do you do when you want to try out a relationship casually, but the other person acts like it can only end in either marriage or horrible breakup? I think that's a great question, because one of the most challenging things in dating is finding a match in terms of goals or the outcome. And if my suggestion is really just take it one date at a time, and even if the other person has expectations or you're just wanting to date, I would just make it clear in the beginning, let's just see how this grows. And if you need more commitment, or if you're afraid of the outcome, then not you, say this to the other person. If you could say to the other person, if you need more commitment than I can offer right now, then maybe you want to date someone else. I would just put that out there early, that I want to develop a relationship over time, and I don't want to rush into anything. I want to get to know each other organically and naturally, and not make a commitment without really knowing who each other is. And so make that clear from the beginning, and then let the other person make their choice. And if they keep saying the same thing over again, then that might be a flag for you that it's time to walk away. So there's a statement, you remind me of the radio host Delilah here asking women if they've ever lived alone for a while without a man to know themselves before looking for a partner. Do you recommend this? I think that both things are valuable. It's valuable to know yourself and to build your own sense of identity, to know who you are, and to value yourself so that you don't need your validation from a partner, whether you're a man or a woman. But I also want to go back to where I said that some people end up living alone for a long period of time, and then they have trouble sharing space down the road. They have trouble learning how to integrate someone back into their lives. So with that, I'm going to tell you it's always about balance and being willing to have an honest conversation. A lot of these questions today are about being willing to have this conversation out loud and not be terrified of what the person is going to say or if they're going to leave. If you're having an honest conversation and the person bails out of the dating relationship, then it wasn't meant to be. Let it go. And it's going to hurt. There's going to be sadness, but be willing to lean into that rejection and just recognize that it wasn't the best fit. And so I hope I've given you some food for thought today. A lot of it is about being willing to be honest yourself, to look for someone else who's honest, to build commitment, to value your own identity, and to practice self-worth, to know what your deal breakers are, but to be willing to explore and to learn things about yourself and other people, to maybe shift what you've been looking for, and consider dating people that you might not previously have considered dating, because you might be shutting out a lot of really great people that have open hearts and just don't have a perfect V-shaped body, so challenge yourself to learn about yourself and to learn about other people and to take things slowly and to be honest, and know that whether you're an adolescent or you're over 50, that your challenges are all reasonable and that there's somebody out there that can answer your questions and can help you navigate this. So if I've said anything today that's been helpful, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and to subscribe to my channel so you can be notified about other great topics that we'll be talking about. I look forward to seeing you on Mondays where you can ask your questions live. And if you want to get to know me a little further, please head to my website, dawnwigginstherapy.com, where you can schedule a consult. Even if you live far away, we can do some online counseling or whatever works for you. So thanks so much for joining me and have a great day.